The moment I saw Mr. Landon's hand slide across Miriam's lower back as they walked into that cheap pink motel off Highway 92, something inside me broke. It was not just the sight of a married landlord caressing another man's wife. It was the haunting realization that the woman I used to greet every morning as neighbor was willingly walking into sin, wrapped around a man who once pretended to fix a leaking tap just to watch me bend over. And the worst part? I followed them. I stood outside that door, sweating, shaking, and when it opened, what I saw still keeps me awake at night. Before I dive deep into this story, I want to say a big thank you to all my amazing subscribers. You have no idea how much your support fuels this channel. For those who are new here or watching but have not yet subscribed, welcome home. I am so glad you are here, and I truly cannot wait for you to hit that subscribe button. It is the energy that powers this kind of raw storytelling. And please, do not forget to drop your thoughts in the comments after this episode. I really want to hear what you think. My name is Jessica Hill. I am 33 years old, and until recently, I lived in a quiet 3-unit townhouse complex just outside Atlanta, Georgia. I was divorced 2 years ago, no kids, and I worked remotely for a skincare company. My days were slow, repetitive, until Mr. Landon Graves became more than just the man who collected my rent. Landon was tall, charming, and frustratingly well-groomed. He was always clean-shaven, smelled of cedarwood, and spoke in that smooth voice that made even water leaks sound poetic. He owned the property and lived in the main unit with his graceful wife, Alana. She was soft-spoken, almost ghost-like, always with a scarf around her neck, always polite but detached. Then, about 6 months ago, a young couple moved into Unit 2, the Cranstons. Troy and Miriam. He was quiet and worked nights. She, on the other hand, was stunning. Curvy, bright-skinned, always in yoga pants. I noticed Landon started showing up more frequently after they moved in. And every time Miriam was alone, so was he. I thought I was imagining it. Until I was not. That Thursday started like any other. I was on my porch with a cup of peppermint tea, scrolling through emails, when I saw Landon's truck reverse quietly out of the driveway. What made me drop the cup was seeing Miriam jump into the passenger seat. She wore a short blue dress. Her hair was tied up, but her lipstick was blood red. I should have minded my business. But I did not. Something about it scratched my insides raw. I followed them. I got in my Hyundai and stayed 2 cars behind, hands trembling the whole ride. They took a right into a motel I had passed 1,000 times but never entered. The kind of place with buzzing neon lights and a broken ice machine. Cheap. Private. They walked in together. Like lovers. I parked across the road. I could not stop myself. I waited 15 minutes. Then 20. Then I crossed. I knew it was wrong, but curiosity had my soul by the throat. Room 206. I do not know how I knew. I just felt it. I pressed my ear against the door. And then, it opened. I froze. Miriam stood there. Her robe was loose. Her neck flushed red. Behind her, Landon was shirtless, pouring wine into 2 plastic cups. For a moment, none of us spoke. Then she smirked. I ran. I drove home with my heart in my mouth. The entire drive back, I felt dirty. Like I had touched something I was never meant to touch. But the worst part was not what I saw. It was what it awakened in me. That night, I could not sleep. I lay in bed thinking of how Landon's eyes looked. Not surprised. Not guilty. Just calm. Confident. Like he had done this many times before. The next morning, he came to check the water pressure. I should have slammed the door in his face. Instead, I let him in. He walked straight to the kitchen, opened the cabinet under the sink, and crouched low. I watched him. I watched his back muscles move under his tight shirt. I watched the way he glanced over his shoulder and caught me staring. He smiled. I did not look away. It began with an accidental brush of hands. Then a look that lingered too long. Then he stepped closer. I felt his breath on my cheek. And I whispered the one thing I knew I should not say. I know what I saw. His face did not change. He leaned in and said softly, "Then you know what I can give." I should have pushed him out. But I let him kiss me. That was the day everything changed. Not just between us, but inside me. Because the second our lips touched, I forgot every moral, every consequence, every woman I was supposed to be. And I became the woman I swore I would never become. I remember the first time his hands fully claimed my body. It was not in some dark corner or hidden hotel like he did with her. It was right there in my living room, in the bright afternoon sun, with the windows wide open and the blinds drawn halfway. There was no shame on his face. Only hunger. And I let him feed on me. The days that followed that kiss moved fast. Too fast. Landon started coming around almost daily. He would pretend to check the electricity meter, or ask if I had any noise complaints. But it was never about any of those things. His hands always found their way to my waist, or my thighs, or deep between both when I least expected. I did not resist. I stopped resisting the day I decided to open my legs and shut down my conscience. There were times he would leave my apartment with my scent still on his fingers and walk straight into his house like he had just returned from a business errand. Alana, his wife, would be in the garden, humming to her lilies, completely unaware that her husband had just buried his tongue between another woman's thighs. It should have made me feel guilty. Instead, it made me feel powerful. I told myself lies just to sleep at night. That maybe Alana knew and did not care. That maybe Miriam had blackmailed him into the affair. That maybe I was doing the right thing by giving him something better. But the truth was, I was slowly turning into something venomous. And I liked it. One afternoon, a week after our first kiss, I heard a soft knock. It was Miriam. She stood at my door with her phone in hand and a nervous smile on her face. "Hi, Jessica. Can I borrow a cup of sugar?" she asked. I stared at her. Her face was fresh, lips swollen slightly, and her skin still glowed like she had just been touched. I did not know whether to slap her or hug her. But I nodded, and she walked in. I watched her eyes scan my place. Her gaze fell on the half-empty wine bottle on the counter, Landon's favorite. Then on the tie draped over the couch, the one he forgot last night. Her smile froze for a second. "I see someone's having a fun afternoon," she said, half laughing. I shrugged. "Just me, myself, and a bottle of red." She nodded. Her hand gripped her phone tighter. Then she leaned against the counter and whispered, "You know, sometimes I think we all need a secret to survive." She left without taking the sugar. From that moment, I knew she knew. I just did not know what she planned to do with that knowing. Things started changing quickly after that. Alana, the quiet wife, suddenly began greeting me more. She waved from across the lawn, brought over homemade pies, even invited me for a book club meeting at her church. I almost said yes. Almost. One evening, I was riding Landon again on my living room couch, my nails digging into his chest, my body soaking him like he belonged to me, when his phone buzzed. He ignored it. It buzzed again. He pushed me off gently, panting, kissed my neck, and picked it up. His face fell. "It is Alana," he whispered. He picked the call, his voice switching to that sweet innocent tone I used to find sexy. "Yes, honey." "No, I am just helping Jessica with a leak under her sink again." "Yes, I will be home in 10. He looked at me when he hung up. For the first time, I saw something different in his eyes. Not desire, but calculation. As if he had done this too many times and I was just one of the numbers. I lay there naked, knees pulled to my chest, feeling foolish. Used. Disposable. And yet, the next day, when he texted, "I need you," I still opened my door. My body became the weapon I used to silence my thoughts. Every time he touched me, I felt needed. Every time he moaned my name, I felt superior to the women he betrayed. I used my sex like a shield against my emotions. But soon, the shield started to crack. Alana stopped showing up outside. Miriam began walking around with bruises barely hidden under scarves and long sleeves. And Troy, her husband, was rarely home anymore. When he was, he sat outside smoking, staring into the distance like a man who had lost everything. The house felt like a war zone. One night, I came out to dump the trash and saw Miriam crying beside her car. She looked at me through her tears and said, "He promised to leave her." I paused. "Who?" I asked. She looked at me like she was about to spit fire. "Landon." I walked back inside. My hands were trembling. My mouth was dry. That was when I understood. She had never been his tenant first. She had been his lover. Long before me. I was not the exception. I was the replacement. And even worse, the distraction. Landon was never mine. I was his cover. He used me to keep Miriam quiet. To keep the suspicions away from her. To make his wife think he was spreading his evil elsewhere. And I allowed it. I lay in bed all night thinking about how easily he played us all like a chessboard. My bedroom still smelled like him. The sheets still damp with our sweat. I hated him. But I hated myself more. I should have walked away. I should have packed my things and moved out. But I did the opposite. I texted him the one sentence that sealed my fate. "If you touch her again, I will destroy you." His reply came an hour later. "Then you better be ready to be destroyed too." It was a Thursday morning when everything came crashing down. The birds outside chirped like any other day. The sun crawled through my blinds as usual. But inside me, a storm had already started. I had barely slept. I could still hear Landon's threat replaying in my head, his promise to destroy me if I dared to expose him. But I had made up my mind. I was done being a pawn. My body was tired of being the battlefield for his lies and lust. My soul was drowning in guilt. And the weight of betrayal, against his wife, his tenant, and myself, had finally cracked my spine. So I did what I never imagined I would do. I told the truth. It began with an anonymous envelope. Inside it, I placed a flash drive. On it, I had saved voice recordings. Clips from moments he did not know I had captured. Little moans. Little sighs. Snippets of his voice whispering how he loved this mouth more than her meals. I knew it would be enough. The envelope was addressed to Alana Graves. I slid it under her door at exactly 7:48 a.m., when I knew she would still be asleep and Landon would already have left the house. I did not stick around to see what would happen. But by 10 a.m., everything had exploded. The sirens came first. Then the shouting. Then the tears. I stayed inside. Lights off. Curtains shut. I watched through the slit in my blinds as Alana stormed out of the house barefoot, screaming. Her scarf had fallen off, her face twisted in a rage I had never seen. She held the flash drive in one hand and a bottle of pills in the other. Landon chased after her, trying to pull her back. Miriam stood near the mailbox, arms crossed, watching silently, as if she had been expecting it all along. It felt like the climax of a bad movie. But it was my life. By afternoon, Alana had left with her sister. Police had been called after a neighbor panicked, thinking she might harm herself. Miriam went back into her apartment without saying a word. And Landon, he came straight to me. He did not knock. He kicked the door open. I was sitting on the couch in a long white t-shirt, legs crossed, waiting. "You just ruined my entire life," he said, his voice quiet, too quiet. "You ruined your own life," I replied. He looked around the apartment like it was the last time he would ever be inside it. Then he took out his phone, opened something, and turned the screen to me. There I was. Bent over the kitchen counter. Completely naked. My face clearly visible. He had filmed us. Without my knowledge. My knees went numb. "You think you are the only one who can destroy?" he whispered. I wanted to scream. I wanted to cry. But I did neither. I sat there frozen, as he walked out without another word. 2 days later, it was on the internet. The video. Posted anonymously on a local adult site. Titled, "Horny Tenant Gets Wrecked by Her Landlord." My phone would not stop vibrating. Calls. Messages. People asking if it was really me. It was. My boss called. HR was CC'd. They were reviewing my behavior, since I worked remotely using company devices. By Monday, I was fired. My church group removed me from the prayer circle. My younger sister stopped picking my calls. I walked into the grocery store and a teenager smirked and said, "Hey, you are that woman from the video." I left my basket in the aisle and ran out. That night, I received an eviction notice. It was signed by the new property manager. Alana had filed for divorce. Sold the property. Moved out of town. Miriam? She stayed. Landon disappeared for a while. Rumor was he went to stay with family in North Carolina. I packed my things in silence. There was no dramatic farewell. No apologies. No redemption. Just shame. Pure, cold shame. I moved into a cheap motel off the edge of town. The same type Landon used to take Miriam to. The kind with stained carpets and weak water pressure. I sat on the hard bed, my phone in my lap, watching the video again like I was someone else. That woman in the video looked happy. Wild. Powerful. But I was none of those things now. I was broken. Alone. Unemployed. Ruined. And still, a part of me missed him. That was the part one hated the most. I could have kept quiet. I could have played dumb like Miriam and lived in blissful denial. But I chose revenge. And it cost me everything. Now I write this story as a warning. Not just to women. But to anyone who thinks they can dance with fire and not get burned. Infidelity is not just a sin. It is a storm. It will not just soak your skin. It will drown your soul. I opened my mouth to speak the truth. And everything fell apart.